Hello, everyone. It appears that I'm down a couple of panelists, so don't worry. I know Chris Kaiser is still waiting in the digital wings, and he's going to be entering the Zoom space very shortly. And Kat Galacci is also having some technical challenges to get into the call as well. But don't worry, because we have some amazing panelists today. I've popped in our website, the Access VFX website, because I don't like to assume that everybody knows what Access VFX does. So you can check out. Oh, here's Chris. Whoa, I was getting worried then. Hello, Chris. So I'm Simon. I'm the founder and director of Access VFX. Access VFX has been running for about 8 years now. We started in 2017. And I'm here for the first time ever with representatives of our global chapters. And rarely do we get the opportunity to speak to Access VFX as a global movement at these events because they're usually in person. So to do this at this time of day and to be able to loop in our US chapter, our Canadian chapter, and our European chapter is really special. Coming soon, we're also relaunching our Australian and New Zealand chapter as well at Oceania. That's coming soon, and that'll be at a different event. But with us today, we have the awesome Kathleen Ruffalo, recruitment manager for the US at Framestore and co-lead of our Access VFX USA chapter. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello, everyone.
We have Fortunato Fratasio, Head of Compositing and Lead Compositing Instructor and Industry Outreach Specialist at Campus VFX and Lost Boys. And of course, one of our Access VFX Canada kind of leads and members. Hey, Fortunato.
Hi, everyone.
And we have Chris Kaiser, Global Director of Business Development at Glassworks and Chapter Lead for Access VFX Europe. Hello, Chris.
Hello. Hi.
So we're running late. Apologies for the late start. We've got quite a lot to get into. And what I wanted to start with, if that's okay with you all, is to talk about this idea of us being a global industry. And it's something we talk about a lot at various events, but rarely get the opportunity to delve into it. Now, as we know, our industry, VFX animation, is truly global, with talent moving across borders to work on projects worldwide. And I wanted to ask you how you see kind of this global mobility shaping career opportunities, and what advice do you have for those looking to build an international career in this industry? So it's a big question to start with. It's usually one we finish on, but there's no fat in this panel, so we're going to get straight into it. So who wants to kick us off around the idea of an international career rather than just staying put in your territory?
I can start if you'd like, because, well, it's something that I've actually had to do. So in my case, I started my career in one country, I moved to another country, and then wound up moving back to the country where I started. And it is something that I tell a lot of people these days, is that do not look at this career as something where you are going to go to school in a certain city and work there, or probably work at the same company for 10 to 25 years. Be prepared to move around, but there are a lot of there is a lot of good parts to that, because by moving around to different countries, I also learned a lot of different ways of doing things, and it also allowed me to create a great network. I now know people in the UK, for instance, Simon. I know people throughout all of the United States and in Canada. So for me, it's been very, very beneficial to not look at this career as something where I'm going to be in one place alone.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you say that about the experiences you've had, Fortunato. So I guess you get different cultural experiences. And is there something about understanding those different nuances in different territories rather than kind of, the typical cultural nuances that you're used to?
Absolutely. And I think that when you talk about culture, it's also made me, very much aware of that different people do things differently. And when I went from being, a junior artist to a senior artist and finally to a manager, when I was in a management position,
Mm.
it at least gave me that insight that people are different, people approach things differently, people's lifestyles are different. And I had to be able to empathize with with all of this. And so it was, again, another, great advantage for me to have lived my career this way.
Amazing. Thank you, Fortunato. And Kathleen, do you want to build on that? Because America's a big place, right? So I imagine there's different cultural nuances in every single state in America, let alone the globe. So what's your take on this question around that kind of mobility piece?
I think I'm coming from a slightly different perspective from being in recruitment and knowing some of the challenges that come with that mobility. We do obviously have some practical aspects to this idea that we have to deal with in
Of
terms
course.
of immigration and visas. So, I think it's important, to Fortunato's point, to be open-minded and be adaptable to where the opportunities might exist and have that ability to kind of make yourself flexible in that regard. But I also need to be prepared for some of the limitations and the, perhaps hurdles that you'll have to overcome when it comes to that kind of interest in moving across different countries, especially. Within the US, I can speak from Framestore's perspective specifically. Although we are a global company, we are a united group, there is still slight variations between how the different offices operate just between LA, New York, and Chicago. So, I think it's really important to just be, again, flexible and adaptable, because that's going to be key. And also the types of work that you're going to get exposure to in these different regions is going to vary as well. So having an open mind to all of those ideas is really beneficial. And I know, I'm also coming from the point of view of having been at the same company for over 10 years. So I'm like the opposite. I did kind of settle down and made myself at home, and I'll stay as long as they'll keep me. But I think it's also interesting when you work with these global companies that you can move between the locations as well and get exposure to the different types of work even happening within one entity. So I think that is a beautiful thing about the way our industry is set up and the community that supports each other from around the globe. And we can all learn and grow with each other as we kind of get insight into how the different, regions operate, or facilities operate. But again, some of the practicalities, it's harder at the beginning of your career to be able to move around like that. It is something that you'll probably have to build up some skills in your home country, if you will, to be able to be eligible for some of those visas. So just something to continue to keep in mind as well as you consider that global footprint.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess there's some opportunities, because one of the things I find interesting about working for kind of some of the bigger studios. So I've worked for, obviously, we'll talk about the current climate, and I still talk about my time at the Mill, even though it's quite a sore subject at the moment. But working in a company where you get to connect with people all over the world. I mean, almost there's a kind of there's a global travel of the mind going on there. Because I must admit, I love my work at running Access VFX. So I connect with people all over the world, like your good selves. But also in my current job, I get to speak to people in Mumbai and Australia and the US. And actually, I haven't got on a plane in a little while with work, but I still feel like I get those amazing cultural experiences and understand different people's approaches, which can only make you a better professional in this industry, right? Is that similar in Europe, Chris? Because I know when we launched Access VFX Europe back in 2023, that we end of 2023, that we're in like 11, 12 different European countries. And obviously Europe is always a sort of subject. So when we're talking about freedom of movement, obviously Brexit scuppered that for us in the UK. But what's the picture in Europe in terms of mobility and movement and the opportunities that are available?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, we're more internationally connected now than than our previous generations would have been, and
Mm.
I think there's plenty of opportunities to get out and move and follow your dream wherever that might take you. But there are also opportunities wherever you are, and I think it's also kind of not simply thinking that the only place I can go and work in this industry is London or Los Angeles. That there are smaller local markets. There are places like Amsterdam, where I am, where there's a big cross section of international people that have come here for different types of jobs and careers, and every opportunity you get sort of to meet and connect with people from different backgrounds and have an opportunity to collaborate with them, in small projects or big projects or full-time job or something that, comes out of just a simple connection or conversation that you strike up with somebody through networks and social media platforms can lead to opportunities anywhere in the world, which is pretty cool.
Thank you, Chris. And we're going to get into building a global network. Almost that's why we're here today, to talk about the opportunities that are there to actually create your network, even off the back of today's panel. But I did want to kind of address the elephant in the room a little bit. Yeah, going in with all the big questions at the start, folks, not leaving them till the end, is, you know, the unpredictability of our industry and the nature of VFX and animation, particularly in film and TV and at least the on-screen industries. So it's not just the unpredictability of the industry, but, you know, there's always kind of like fluctuating workloads, you know, some contract-based roles, technologies are evolving all the time. There's the ongoing kind of artificial intelligence debate. So how do you think us professionals or aspiring professionals, how can, you know, how do you navigate and embrace this roller coaster? You know, what keeps you in the industry? What's made you more resilient over the last few years? Because we asked the same question on Monday on our neurodiverse panel about, you know, is this industry for you? And it's a tough time at the moment. I mean, what keeps you keep going in visual effects and animation? Because it is an unpredictable beast, isn't it? Let's be honest. This is the question that just the tumbleweed bounces
I
across
could
the screen.
go ahead. Did you want to go ahead, Chris, or?
Well, no, I mean, I guess I'll try to keep it quick. From my side, what's kept me interested in it is kind of that challenge, and that the fact that, like, my past has been a mix of film and TV, long form animation, and then also commercial and advertising for a long time. And, you know, while the actual makeup of that work and that content has evolved, what's been consistent is people and the places and communities that come together to make it, right. And I think no matter how crazy of a situation it is, all the unknowns that are out there, it's, you know, that's kind of what helps drive innovation and drive, you know, new connections, is people trying to navigate these tough times together and lifting each other up and being there when it is at its most vulnerable moments, like we see with our mill community now. So yeah, I think you have to have a hunger for it. You know, you have to want to continue to dive into the chaos as it unfolds, but the reward is often worth it, I think, you know.
And I think that certainly in the last few days, you mentioned community, Chris. I've certainly seen the community come out and support our friends under the technical kind of group. You know, people who are open to work, and, you know, it's something we've been trying to support people with way before that happened in the last, you know, the current downturn. But Kathleen, what about you? What keeps you resilient during this current roller coaster, which is what I'm going to call it now, I think, for the purpose of this question?
Well, I feel like it's been a roller coaster for always. You know,
Certainly.
this is just one hill that we're on at
Yeah,
the moment.
absolutely.
And I've always said this is a career of passion, and I think anyone that's interested specifically in the entertainment sector of computer graphics and visual effects needs to be prepared for the fact that if this isn't what they eat, sleep, and breathe, they're probably going to struggle to maintain the ride, I guess, if we're going to stay on the roller coaster metaphor. You know, and I think my advice for kind of how to stay within it is making yourself indispensable. And no matter what position you take on, and again, kind of leaning back into that adaptability and embracing opportunities for their potential. You know, even at face value, maybe the role that you're being offered doesn't feel like it's ticking all the boxes for what you want out of your career, but you can see where that could lead. Every single job I've had in my career in the entertainment industry has helped lead to the next one. So it's really important to see that every position has its value. And it's not to say that you shouldn't shoot for the big roles and the things that really kind of fit with what your dream position is, but to see how everything can be a part of the path and part of the story that brings you to the career that you're really aiming for. But having that kind of positive attitude and being a good team player, you know, is a really big part of staying within the industry, you know, doing the work, showing up on time, being engaged with the reviews, being engaged in the conversations and the meetings, whatever it might be as your role within the industry, you know, and being willing to support each other, you know, again, kind of helping out, stepping in to help a fellow colleague, are all things that everyone notices. You might think that it goes unnoticed, but someone's noticing when you're kind of stepping up. And that, I think, helps with that ability to maintain a career in this industry.
I love that, and it is certainly a career of passion, like you say, Kathleen. It's that's why we do it, right? And it definitely speaks to the community piece that Chris mentioned. Fortunato, anything to add to that? What keeps your resilience
If
levels
yeah, if there's
maintained?
anything, if there's anything I can add to that is again, I love the fact that you both, Kathleen, Chris, and Simon mentioned passion, 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 but at the same time, you've got to keep diversifying your skill set.
Hmm.
Especially, Simon, you mentioned these are hard times, especially this past week. So learn other aspects of the VFX pipeline if you can. Kathleen mentioned that sometimes you may have a job offered to you that it may not be the one you were looking for, but stepping into a certain role may help. Attend as many industry events as you possibly can at a time like this. But outside of the creative, levels, because we're talking about our skill set and everything like that. When you talk about the fact that this industry is such a roller coaster, there's something that maybe we don't talk about enough, and that's create a financial cushion. Learn how to do that. It's very, very important, and it's something that can definitely take care of you, on rainy days. And lastly, I also want to mention manage expectations in your mental health. Again, Simon, you mentioned that this week is a tough one. I can't even imagine what some people are going through. So we need to manage those expectations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fortunato. So I want to move into global networking. We've touched on this already, and Kathleen, you've spoke to this in some detail as well. And I'd want to stay with you on this question, Kathleen, if that's okay. One of, as we know, the biggest challenges for any talent trying to break into industry is making the right connections. I think we established that with the answer to the last question. And we have the Access VFXE mentoring program. It's been around since 2017, and it has been a game changer. We're 3,000 plus members already, and it's continuing to support people and the industry actually since that year. And that allows mentees to connect with mentors from entirely different countries, gaining insights and advice from professionals working at established studios around the world. So, how important do you think mentorship is for emerging talent? And what are some of the ways it can help build a truly global network outside of just being connected to somebody in a different country?
I mean, I think mentorship is incredibly valuable, and I have been so incredibly inspired by what Access VFX has been able to curate and offer to individuals that are willing to engage with it. I think there's so much about our career paths or like the goals of the roles that we might want to achieve that we don't know. And you'll only find out when you get to talk to somebody that's actually doing it. And honestly, when you start doing it yourself, you'll really, really learn a lot of it. But you don't know what you don't know. So that's where I think mentorship really comes into play in supporting that ability to get some unique insights that you can't really learn from a book or you can't really take in a class in the same way. It's that kind of direct connection that can really support you. And beyond that, with the networking aspect to it, as I think we've touched upon, the value of networking is innumerable. The ability to kind of build these connections, it's going to be what helps get your name in front of the right people because so and so said they met you at an event or they've seen some of your work and they knew you were kind of a part of a independent film project that you helped out on this film kind of thing. It really does make a difference because those people are going to recognize the extra effort that you're putting in to make yourself a part of the community. And again, kind of helping others. Because even when you're getting mentored as the mentee, you'd be surprised how much you're actually giving to the mentor in return. And it is this kind of mutually beneficial relationship. So, I think it's something to absolutely take advantage of when it's available to you, because I know when I got started, there weren't really these organizations that I knew about, and it was harder to find ways to connect with other folks, and you were just literally going to, I mean, I was recommended to go sit at a bar and, try to connect with producers that way to get jobs. And it's like, I don't know if that was the right choice for me as a young 20-year-old new to Los Angeles. But, I think having this kind of safe space that really helps focus the conversation is a beautiful thing and absolutely something everyone should take advantage of.
Thank you, Kathleen. And I see Kat Galacci has just joined us, Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist at Calling All Talent New York City. How are you doing, Kat? And you are on your you're all vertical, which is fine. It
Oh,
looks like you're
goodness.
kind
You
of.
know what? Let's change this. Let's change that right now.
There
Let's
we
have
go.
it.
There we go.
There we go. Awesome. Thanks you. And better late than never. It's so good to see you all. And so sorry for the slight technical issues that we had on our side.
No
Good to have
worries.
you, or good to see you all.
Good, Kat. And we're just talking about networking. Actually, you join at a pertinent time. So we've just started talking about the global e-mentoring program, opportunities to create a global network. And actually, as you've just joined, Kat, I would love you to speak to some of the initiatives that the Access VFX USA chapter have put in place to continually foster that global network beyond just e-mentoring. So I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to let you kick that off, Kat, if you don't mind.
Yeah, most certainly. Yeah, and I really appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, so networking is pretty crucial in this industry, as you so mentioned. I'm very much aligned with Kathleen in that sharing space with so many incredible industry professionals from around the world, who pretty much embrace all levels of experience is really important, and these lead to really rich and incredible conversations. And this also reveals a lot of in the way of overlapping interests and fosters pretty important connections that we have around the world. Selfishly, it does bring me a lot of joy to see everyone sharing their stories and embracing this industry that we're all a part of. Kathleen and I have collaborated on a number of initiatives throughout the past couple of years, and it's been a joy to do so, where we've been basically having virtual monthly sessions, both for, to your point, networking, as well as reviewing portfolios. And it's a really great opportunity for everyone to be a part of this incredible industry and just to connect worldwide. And also just share in these safe spaces our sensitivities and our concerns about the industry as it's ever evolving, and how we approach these meaningful connections.
Absolutely, Kat. And I will note, we just had a comment in the chat, Kat, that people can't see your face. So I think you're right at the bottom of your screen. We can see it
Oh,
behind the
goodness.
scenes. So if you can kind of move
Oh,
up.
but no one else can.
Up your,
Oh
there
my
you
goodness.
are.
How about now?
Perfect. There we go. Amazing. Amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. There you go, Ashley. All right. Yeah. So thank you for that. And I wanted to kind of also touch on the importance of, or the growth of the speed networking events that you've been putting in place. So I'm going to come to Fortunato and Chris shortly, but I wanted to hear from Kathleen about, how you felt about seeing those monthly beats throughout the whole of last year, by the way, and this year, and how, what's that meant to you personally, but actually some of the outputs and some of the changes that you've seen as a result. I mean, tell us more, please.
Sure. So we started our virtual speed networking events in November of 2023, and we've held them every single month since. And it's been incredible to see the evolution, not only on our part as hosts and kind of adapting to what the individual participants want out of the events, but also just to see the growth and the reach that we've been able to have. So our stats for 2024, we reached 480 unique participants across the year, with 180 individuals returning for more than one session. So people do keep coming back. So I think it's a nice kind of recurring event to help foster those relationships, because networking isn't just one 5-minute session. It is really about building a relationship. And with any relationship, we all know it's kind of a continuous effort to maintain. So I think that's been pretty incredible to see how friendships and, colleague relationships, professional relationships have started to evolve. And I've seen some kind of offshoots of people that I know have met in this networking space, going off to do their own projects together, or organizing their own events in their city locally so they can see each other in person. But we've been able to engage with individuals from all over the world. We have representatives from the UK, the US, Canada, across Europe, Central America. So it's been really amazing to see how everyone's come together. I was telling Simon earlier, our next session is on Friday. We've got close to 200 people registered to join us. Usually not everybody that registers shows up, but it's going to be an incredible turnout. And I say every month when we're in these sessions that I will keep showing up and being there for everyone as long as they keep showing up. So even on the months where we maybe only had 35 people, it was still a really engaging conversation, and people are making these relationships and carrying them on. And I've said before, it's not, it's not a job fair. I can't guarantee that you're going to meet a recruiter, but at the very least, that I'm seeing that and that I talk to a lot of other recruiters in the industry and make a note when I notice that people are, again, making that effort to come to these sessions and engage with the community. And it just helps kind of continue to keep your name out there as new opportunities arise. So it's obviously I'm, very biased, but I think it's a well worth the effort to join in. And the nice thing about it too, and then I swear I'll stop talking, is how accessible it makes networking. Because I know that the idea of networking can be quite intimidating, especially when you're in a room and you have to like go up and talk to a stranger and make that initial introduction. And at least in this space, you're kind of forced into it. You're just automatically spit out into a room to talk to somebody one-on-one. So for those of us that might be a bit more introverted, it still allows you that opportunity to network and kind of have that conversation without having to really put yourself out there. Because I know as much as this is a part of what I do, when I go to big networking events in person, I can be quite intimidated as well. So that's something that I think has been really unique about what we've set up and continue to encourage folks to join us.
Absolutely. And it actually speaks to a lot of the conversations we had on Monday's panel about neurodivergence, because networking events strike fear in the heart of a lot of people, not just neurodivergent people, but people who might be nervous about networking or speaking to people face to face. So this creates that environment, doesn't it? And people can engage with it as kind of passively or as what's the opposite of passively, vigorously as possible, which is super cool. And it's fully accessible. Where somebody asked Mara, I think, on the feed, is it open just to students, and it is fully accessible to anybody who wants to engage, right? So
yeah,
fully
anybody.
inclusive.
Yeah, and I can't control who you're going to meet with, so it's very randomized. And for those that have joined us before, you'll find that sometimes you keep getting paired with the same person over and over again, and we have a little fun reshuffling each round. But the other nice thing about it too is that it's only 5 minutes that you're in that space with individuals. So if the connection isn't there, you're not stuck in kind of an awkward moment of like, how do I exit this conversation that I don't want to be a part of? But also to that, it is on the individuals to further those conversations. We're just here to help you make that initial contact. And then hopefully from there, you can, communicate outside of the event and maintain that relationship.
Amazing. It's such a good initiative, and thank you, Kat and Kathleen, for getting it off the ground. It's become a mainstay of what we do with everything else that we offer. I want to stay in the world of kind of mentoring and connection, and I guess my next question is about breaking into the industry. And it can, as we've said, from a mentoring perspective, can feel quite overwhelming for a lot of people, especially for those without direct industry connections. So beyond mentorship and networking events, which I think we've covered in some detail, what other ways can aspiring artists and professionals tap into this global community to build meaningful relationships and career opportunities? Chris, did you want to kind of pick this up? Do you have any thoughts about that? We offer so much, but are there other ways?
It's a good question. I mean, obviously we beat the drum of the mentorship platform so much, and just everything on Access VFX in terms of resources and ideas and ways to find out more about paths in the industry. But yeah, I think when I look back to my career, kind of how I stumbled into this, your networking begins just with people in your immediate vicinity, and sort of connecting and letting people know that this is something you're interested in. Open up conversations with people around you. It could be teachers or family members or other people that it starts with you expressing an interest in getting into this thing, and then hoping that through those conversations, through finding local activities and events, different related fields or areas of artistic creative endeavors that are happening around you, kind of find your way into that, and like communicate with people that have managed to get careers through anything that's creative, the photographers or authors, writers. Like there's kind of low-hanging fruit, I think, a little bit in terms of just discussing what your interests are and what you put out, and is likely to come back in some way by at least kind of the word of mouth thing. I hate to say that the nepotism thing exists, but there's always the possibility that some random connection or friend or family member that you had no idea had experience that was relevant could come around and give you an idea or take an interest and your desire to get into this field and help you as an older person that might have had a totally different path, and give you some meaningful ideas and support, and be a sounding board as you navigate your way into it.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And also, there's the whole plethora of other online platforms and meetups, right? I mean, if you go on Eventbrite and just search animation or search VFX, there'll be some kind of VES meetup or some kind of community group, or you go on Reddit or Discord channels. I mean, the amount of kind of forums that exist where you can connect with people as well. Fortunato, as an educator, what would be your advice around other ways to connect and continue to build that global network? Because getting your mentor in place is great. I mean, that is almost kind of like reverse nepotism in a way, because we always say it's all about who you know. When you get a mentor, you now know somebody who works in industry, so that's covered. But Fortunato, what's your take on, continued connection?
Well, two of the things that you just mentioned, I mean, Reddit has, there's a lot of thriving communities, that people can get involved with. There's Reddit, there's the Discord servers, there's CG Society, ArtStation. So, I mean, those are all readily available to people to just talk and get advice. But if there's one other, piece of advice that I can give someone, is create and share your content as much as you can. Because like you said, if I'm just trying to get into the industry, and I don't really know anybody, just putting stuff out there could be a great start. And sharing my journey. And then lastly, just do what we're doing right now. Attend these virtual conferences and webinars just when they're available to you, and they're free. Just go is what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's always a handful of people. So everybody watching this now, you'll only get a small amount of people who will follow up, I always find. Like that's my gauntlet that I'll throw to everyone here about, like follow up with everybody on LinkedIn, say thank you for the panel, it was great. And then straight away you're on somebody's radar. It's like like Kathleen was saying, these are the fundamentals of relationship building. It's just getting them. It's a bit like the speed network, and you turn up to one, turn up to the next one, then you become that kind of face that people go, oh, you're back. No different to rocking up to a traditional networking event like back in the day when they used to happen, with name badges and stuff. So really, really interesting, folks. Thank you. And so many different ways you can build your global network. We have so many questions and only so much time, but I did want to talk about accessibility. And I know, Kat, this is something that's very close to your heart. And of course, over the years, and certainly in my time in industry, entering the VFX animation industry has often been perceived as costly with, expensive courses, software. You need to have some kind of swanky kit at home and laptops and computers. And in some cases, some industry events can create barriers for various reasons in terms of cost, or we mentioned some of the neurodiversity challenges as well. But there are free initiatives, as we said. We've got the Access VFX programs. There are the speed networking events, the real reviews that we offer, and all the local in-person events that are free as well. I guarantee anything Access VFX do will always be free. But we have all these free tools that we're always talking about, right? Blender, Unreal, so much YouTube tutorials. I mean, realistically, do you think these resources are transforming accessibility and opening doors for aspiring talent? Because they've been there for a long time now, Kat, right? But you're at the coalface of working with students and getting people into industry. What's your take on the free resources that exist?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that everyone should have access to free initiatives and free resources. Everyone within this space, I imagine, feels very similarly. Accessibility is very much integral. I mean, I know from my time in programs and universities, growing up and being in school, I couldn't afford courses or external mentoring or external costs. And these resources pretty much ensure that, the financial side of things aren't hindering the learning experience. And also I'm a firm believer that being self-motivated, and I think we sort of, as I was joining you all, we touched upon that topic, and having access to being able to learn at your own speed pretty much gives everyone the opportunity to better work and to a better work and life balance as they manage the myriad of other commitments that we all have, or that we all might have. The way in which we receive information is so different too, to every single one of us in this space. And I think when one doesn't have costs as a barrier, this gives those of us who are interested the opportunity to explore and indulge before launching into a greater financial commitment, I think. I also wanted to quickly expand upon the previous topic and expand a little bit about what Chris was mentioning earlier too, because another free resource is to Chris's point, the informational interview. So, he talked about, reaching out to individuals and sort of the sense of direct outreach. And I want to highlight the fact that since the onset of the pandemic, we've seen really much of a greater interest in connection and conversation. And rather than just sitting in our more isolated spaces, this encourages so many of us to actually really reach out and talk to one another. So I definitely encourage those of us within this space, and I still have my informational interviews to this day, reach out to someone on LinkedIn, reach out to someone on some of the social media channels that we all have access to, because I think so many of us are interested in even sharing what we do, and sort of moving into this sort of space is kind of a great way to reach out to someone who has a role you aspire to, or reaching out to someone who's working in a studio environment that might be interested in. It's kind of a chance to gather some pretty invaluable insights, not just to land a job immediately, but just to collect meaningful data. And that's an additional free resource. So I do think these are all great ways to form, deeper conversations, deeper connections, and more of an understanding collectively that we have of the industry.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Kat. I'm keen to move on, but does anybody have anything else to add about, accessibility? Because I think we've covered so many bases there, but I don't want to leave anybody out, because I really want to talk about thinking beyond film and episodic. It's my new favorite thing to talk about, particularly in the current climate. Now, we know that many people, I'm sure, watching this have aspirations to work in film and TV, right? And as we know, the skills developed in VFX animation are in high demand across a wide range of industries. So there's VFX in fashion visualization and virtual catwalks. There's medical visualization. There's legal, believe it or not. We're actually working on a podcast, thanks to Kathleen, on working in the legal industry, but being a VFX artist, which is crazy. Interactive design, architectural visualization. There's so many. We always say VFX is everywhere, but we always stay in our bubble of TV and film and commercial work, right? Now, how can applicants or aspiring talent expand their career outlook and explore opportunities beyond perhaps traditional routes into industry that we've, shouted about for many years, as Axis VFX, but as industry as well? Anybody want to kind of take this? Any thoughts on that wider VFX industry beyond Marvel movies and things with explosions in them?
I mean, I can just mention one interesting thing that Hector McLeod, the founder of Glassworks, also created something called Heartworks, and
Yes,
it's a real-time medical visualization tool that was developed with a photoreal rendering of the heart that it's dynamically driven with simulations about potential heart situations that occur in the open operating theater. So that's something that's wildly different from advertising or superheroes, and it is still using the same tools, the same software, the same skill set. So I love that, because I joke about ad emergencies all the time, and to know that there is a way to leverage all of these tools available, and to create visualizations to bring things to life that have meaningful purpose. Obviously, it does translate to commercial elements as well, with products and demonstrations of things that people are selling. But that there are that's just one example of what I'm sure you mentioned is alternative paths to using these types of skills in a different medium.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I mean, we are certainly working with a lot of different industries at the moment to create a series of podcasts, Axis VFX podcast. I don't know if anybody listens out there to the pod, but we're going to be doing some really interesting episodes around alternate VFX careers coming soon. So watch out for them. Any other thoughts on alternate career paths? I'm very keen to get into the Q&A. We've got a few
one little
questions.
thing that I could mention is having been a visual effects artist my entire life, is identify these transferable skills, like Chris mentioned, but position yourself as a problem solver, because that's all we do. It's no matter what discipline you're in visual effects, whether you're a compositor, a lighter, an effects artist, we're constantly solving problems. And so if you can position yourself as one of those people, it will make yourself more attractive to people in these other industries.
That's great. Thank you, Fortunato. Now, before I get into the Q&A, one of the questions is, could you repeat the software for medical visualization? So Chris, would you repeat the software, please?
Yeah, that's called Heartworks. And it is something that's largely developed as a software that's licensed to schools and universities and hospitals. But yeah, you can look it up. There's got to be other examples of such medical visualization tools out there as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Okay, we've got some questions, folks. I'm going to power through them. Let's do this quick fire if we can. We've got about 12-ish minutes to do them. So the first question that came in was, I'm going to make a terrible job of pronouncing your name, whoever you are, but Simanek, I think, is the best I can do there, who says, great presentation. Thanks a lot, all of you. As the situation is as it is in VFX at the moment, I bet we all experience downtimes and crisis. And even though as a person with some bigger companies in a portfolio, it's still stressful to handle uncertain periods. Do you have advice how to handle these harder times and moments? Thank you very much. Who wants to take this one?
I could
I'm happy
try.
to. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, Kat, you go. I've talked a lot.
No, you have not. I think also just in terms of, looking, we sort of addressed this earlier, free resources, also just mentorship, also finding ways for connection. I think when we are in these very difficult times, and so many of us have been speaking about this more recently, according to more recent events, I think finding sense of connection and community is really, really integral, and these lasting communities are sort of what gets us through. And being able to have these conversations, these authentic conversations about our fears and our concerns is really, really important. And celebrating all of your achievements so far, and just recognizing that there are more, conversations to be had. And yeah.
Thank you.
Not
Thank
quick
you.
fire, Simon, sorry.
Pretty quick fire for you, Kat, to be fair. I'm happy with that. I've got a question here from Sophia, who says, do you know something that can offer networking and mentorship opportunities for 2D concept artists? Thanks for your time, by the way. Access VFX is amazing. Well, thank you very much, Sophia. Well, the Access VFX mentoring program, you can fill out your aspirations, and we do have concept artists who sign up as mentors. We're always looking for more, and there's a big demand for concept artists, storyboard artists, and the like. So I would certainly not discount the mentoring program. And there's Concept 101, which is a festival and a podcast and an organization that was set up in the UK, I believe, who have a regular festival, and they're worth Googling as well. I don't know whether anybody else has any other sources or advice there, but that would be my take on that question from Sophia. Oh, I love a bit of dead air on a panel. All good? All right, cool. I was looking at Kat, and she looked like she was going to dive in there. Okay, so we've got a question from an anonymous attendee who says, from all of your years of experience, what are the key skills or tips you would give to an artist to pitch themselves to productions or potential clients from a business standpoint or freelance? So any key skills, particularly those of you that I think you're all in the recruitment game. So yeah, any advice there for an anonymous attendee?
I can start. I think it's critical to make sure you're making your portfolio relevant to the companies and the jobs that you're applying for. So make sure you're kind of keeping in line with what they're actually looking for. So be that maybe more of a stylized look versus a more photorealistic look. So catering your work to appeal to the clients that you're hoping to build relationships with. I think the other big part beyond the portfolio, beyond the quality of work, is your ability to be a good collaborator, as I kind of hit upon earlier. Most of the time, what we're screening for after we look at your reel is if you're going to work well with everybody, if you're going to have a good attitude, if you're going to fit in with the team. So any experiences you can gain, even outside of paid work, in working with others and collaborating, I think reads very well when you're going into interviews and presenting your work to others, because they're already going to understand your ability to take notes, to take direction, to communicate with your teammates, to ensure that you're sharing information seamlessly and communicating in a clear way. Those are all really essential in this industry, no matter the role.
Thank you. I get a feeling you've been asked that question before, Kathleen.
Maybe once or twice.
I've got a question from Mara here, who actually asks, I'd love to attend the speed networking event on Friday, the 28th of February, but I seem to have missed the registration. Is there any way to register, or we'll have to wait for the next one? I'm assuming from one of the answers earlier that because we have 200 people signed up, we can't possibly take on any more, right? But we do have one in March.
Yeah, I'll open it again for like an hour. So jump on
Wow.
it and I'll
Go.
open up the registration and you can get in. But I have to send the invite out today. So after this ends, I'll reopen the form. So you've got about an hour before I'm going to send out the message. But as stated, we've already got the March date set up. So if you visit accessvfx.org in the event section, you can register for March. And beyond that, we do intend to keep posting these every month. So we'll probably be announcing next month's times and dates here in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Kathleen. Now, my favorite question is from an anonymous attendee who says, what's a good path to ILM? And do they hire only contract jobs? Well, there's nobody on this panel from ILM. So I think you should probably contact somebody at ILM. If you search ILM or Industrial Light and Magic on LinkedIn, you'll find a recruiter. And I'm sure somebody, Leanne Loughran, there you go. Leanne Loughran, I'll pop her name in the chat. She's great. I'm sure she'll be able to help you out with that question. And the final question, and I don't want this to turn into a recruitment panel, but I should cover everyone. Nidanwe Chamunda says, is there offers for stop motion animation as well as 3D animation for an autistic creative who's never worked in the creative industry in Access VFX? Well, I can say, much like the last question around concept art, is you can sign up to the mentoring program. You can put in any learning needs, or you can mention that you may be autistic if you're speaking for yourself, of course, and we will do our best to find you an appropriate mentor match. So it's not closed off to you at all, if that makes sense. So that's that. So they're all of the questions, and that's good because I've got a couple of questions I want to ask our panel, and I've saved the best till last. And whether or not we'll get through it in 7 minutes, I don't know. So we can keep this fairly quick fire if that's possible, because we've talked about the difficult period we're living through as an industry, but we're also living through a pretty difficult period in the world. And, you know, we're in a bit of an interesting political climate, depending on how you see it and whether you lean left or you lean right. And I'm not going to get into a big political hot potato conversation here. But we are seeing increased pushback against diversity, equity and inclusion efforts, whether through policy changes, restrictions on equity, diversity and inclusion programs, the rise of anti-woke narratives. And I want to quickly ask you all, as leaders of Access VFX, how do you see these shifts impacting the creative industries? And why is it, and this is a leading question, why is it more important than ever to continue championing inclusion in visual effects and animation? That's an important question, because we have to remember Access VFX is all about diversity, equity, inclusion. That's why we started. So any thoughts on that? We don't have to go deep on it, but it's important to put a stake in the ground.
I'll abbreviate myself on that one, but I'm originally Venezuelan Hungarian, and I didn't know anything about our industry. And I think representation really matters. Our own authenticity matters. When we are our most authentic selves, and this is sort of how I sort of try to remind myself daily, we can communicate meaningful conversations and share equally meaningful stories. And this really, inclusion as a whole makes us more resilient as a community. That's something that I try to aspire to, because we're sort of connecting on this authenticity, and how we share stories is really important. So I think, I think I'll leave it at that. Sorry, I'll abbreviate myself.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Kat. Any other thoughts on that question?
Sure. I think that we have to keep doing this. We have to champion inclusion, because, for one thing, we'll lose out on untapped talent if we don't.
Exactly.
But, when we talk about this industry, it's a creative industry. It's all about vision. And, how are we going to tap into vision unless we have a wide variety of experiences? So, and cultures, like Kat just said, she brings something to this industry that I probably couldn't have done because of just her background. So I think that we have to keep championing this.
Thank you. Thank you, Fortunato. I want to build on that with the second question. Did anybody else want to add to that, by the way? I saw Chris come off mute, so I didn't want to.
No, let's go to your next question.
Sure, but it's in the same vein, so I'll come to you next, Chris. So be prepared. I'm coming for you.
Uh-oh.
So Access VFX, as we've discussed, is all about fostering community. We've mentioned community already, mentorship and support for underrepresented talent. And in challenging times like these, how can we ensure that aspiring and existing professionals, especially those who may feel marginalized at the moment, and you know who you are, know that they have a place in this industry and a network that will always advocate for them?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it. This is a group of people that we're all donating our time and carving out parts of our day to make sure that this is something we're talking about. And I think that there are a lot of people like us out there that feel it is an important thing, and that if the industry is going to continue to exist and thrive, that we need more people to be there and participating, and it needs to be new voices and people from different places that actually innovate and change and evolve in an interesting way. So, there is hope. Look beyond your your borders. If you're in America and might have a chance to get out, or find other people through mentor platforms and other things that you can speak to that will help guide you on your journey. There are people that care, and you're looking at a great group of them right here through Access VFX.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Any other thoughts on that question before I go for the final killer question? Then we'll try and mop up any other questions from the rest of the group. There's one more question on this, and it kind of is along the same vein, but these are important messages to send out. The one thing I will say with Access VFX is we don't have shareholders. As Chris rightly says, we're all volunteer run, so nobody's telling us to stop what we're doing. So if anybody has any concerns about Access VFX disappearing, that isn't happening. Okay, it's run by a lot of passionate people, and you may hear about companies dropping their EDI programs. We are one big EDI program, so it isn't going anywhere. So I just want to put that stake in the ground here and now, live at Escapeverse. So final question is that movements, and there are movements against diversity and inclusion, they often claim the idea of fairness or meritocracy. But the reality is those kind of movements create more barriers for underrepresented talent for obvious reasons. In the face of this growing resistance that we are facing, how do we move beyond just defending EDI efforts and instead push for real lasting change in VFX and animation? Is it about doing what we're doing, or should we be doing more? Again, I'm not letting you off lightly, so we've got a minute left to go, and I'm hitting you with this big question, guys. But any final thoughts on that before we wrap up?
I'll quickly add mentorship, education. We've covered a lot of these themes, free resources, maintaining these free resources, lasting communication, connections, celebrating stories with unique voices, creating safe spaces for conversation, being allies, and also I'd wrap this thought with leadership of organizations must commit to these initiatives, these very important conversations, and not just through conversations, through actions as well.
Amazing. Thank you. I've just seen Christian Arce is willing to invest in Access VFX stock. We are open for business, my friend, if you want to sponsor anything or help us out. And we're a struggling non-profit out here. So yeah, whoever you are, if you're anybody out there, let us know who are watching this recording. But what an amazing place to end it, Kat. Does anybody else have any final thoughts, or do you think that is kind of a good place to leave it? I think Kat may have been late, but she definitely made up for it with those final thoughts.
I would just add to that and say, like, check whatever company you're trying to get a job at, that they do have DEI policies, that they are participating, because in the creative field, if you're not, you shouldn't be working there.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Vote with your feet. Yeah, you can always look on the Access VFX website and see who the membership are as well, because anybody on that list of studios are committed to EDI and will be forever. They're tied in forever. They don't know it yet, but they are. Anyway, that brings us to an abrupt end, but an end nonetheless. If we missed any of your questions in the chat, 'cause it's quite hard to keep up with them. I think I saw somebody asking for deaf support. We are doing our best to make the website as accessible as possible, and it's certainly something we are striving towards. But yeah, if you want to follow up with any of us, you can connect with us on LinkedIn, drop us an email, info@accessvfx.org, or you can get me at simon@accessvfx.org, or just hit us up on LinkedIn, and I'm sure anybody here will come back to you. But I guess I wanted to give a big kind of virtual round of applause to the brilliant Kathleen Ruffalo, Kat Galacci, Chris Kaiser, and Fortunato Fatasio. I've been Simon Devereaux. Good night. But thank you so much, guys. That has been wonderful. Really enjoyed that conversation. We got through a lot there, as we always do. But yeah, thank you, Escape Studios and Escapeverse Live. It's been great.